Welcome back. Managing kids and dogs over the summer can be challenging for busy families. So, I want to give you tips to make it seamlessly and easy for you to manage your dogs and kids over the summer because there is a specific way to go about managing your dogs and the kids for the summer to make your life easier so that you're not feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and things like that. Let's jump into some tips. So, the first thing you want to do when you think about managing your dogs and kids during the summer, I talk about this a lot with my families in general, no matter if it's what time of year it is setting up a schedule for your kids and dogs. You want to make sure that you establish a routine that's going to be allocated for both your kids and your dog. So, what I would say is that the summertime, of course, your schedule may change because your kids are out of school. So you want to put your dogs on the same schedule as your kids to make your life a little bit more easier. So take some time, sit down, think about your new summer schedule. Are you getting up at a different time? You want to try to get your dog up at the same time as the kids and stuff like that, not getting your dog up at a separate time because then it makes things a little bit chaotic. The sooner you can get your dogs and kids on the same schedule, the easier it's going to be for you to navigate throughout the summer. So be sure you're sitting down thinking about that. You also want to designate specific periods within that schedule for physical activities and walking around and outdoor play with your dogs and kids. So if there's a structured time where you ideally either this is also perfect. A structured time where you take your dog on a walk. What I would do is spend that time taking your kids outdoors too and scheduling a time where maybe you're going to the playground and you're walking around with your dog while your kids are playing and things of such. This one is very important, very, very important. I talk about this a lot with people who have with dog owners who have puppies and families who own puppies, is creating a quiet time for your dog to relax and recharge. You have to think about it. During the summer, most of the time, our kids, well, I know mine says, let me speak from experience, they're just up all day. They're playing, they're going in and out the house, they're running around with their friends and stuff like that. It doesn't give your dog, who ideally throughout the school year is, spending 8 hours out the day from like 7 to whatever, relaxing and things of such. So you want to be sure that you give your dog time to recharge. And what I'm hearing too, just to throw this in there, is, people are working from home and ideally when I say, okay, give your dog time to recharge, they should recharge in a separate area from where you're working, because even though a dog's lying down, they're not, and you're working, they can't truly be relaxing if you're on a phone or if you're on a Zoom call and things like that. You have to think about it. If you were to lay down for a nap and then all of a sudden, your kids start turning on the TV and stuff like that and zooming all around, you wouldn't be truly getting your best sleep. So you want to make sure that your dog has time, quiet time, time to recharge, time to relax, whether that's in the crate, in another area, another room, outside, alone, just some space from the kids. Look, I might need the space from the kids, right? All right. Also, you want to make sure you involve the kids in the dog's care. This is important too, because what happens is your kids get bored, right? And next you hear, ouch, oh my God, the dog's doing this, the dog's doing that. But if you involve your kids in a dog's routine, such as feeding, grooming, cleaning up after the dogs, teaching your kids how to be a responsible dog owner will help them bond, help them build empathy for the dog, and so that the dog's just not there. The dog's a part of the family, and they're helping taking care of them. The younger kids love this. They love being assigned a specific task for the dog, so they feel like they're in charge. So if you have the younger kids that are like 10 and under, they love stuff like that, being assigned a specific task. If you have multiple children in the household, just so they won't get into, arguing and fighting about who's doing what for the dog, yes, assign them specific tasks. Try to correlate the tasks to things they like doing with the dog. So if one of them, likes feeding a dog, you're going to give them that task. If one of them likes, just hanging out and playing with the dog, you would have that one do training activities or play outside with the dog and things of such. So try to, I always do this when I work with families as well too. Like I always talk to the children and I like asking, like, what do you like to do? Because you don't want to give them something to do with the dog that they don't like doing in general, know? So if I have a kid who likes, throwing balls or running around and stuff, I'll give them like impulse games and stuff like that. So I give the kids games that train as well as games that they can play with their dog. So always make sure you're teaching your kids responsibility about around the dog, and just giving them some type of, giving your dog some type of brain games, puzzle games, so they can stay challenged and engaged. If you think about it, our dog's going to be at home with the kids. The kids are good on their own. They're staying engaged, but we want to make sure our dogs can stay engaged throughout the summer as well. So, making up an obstacle course in the backyard for the dogs with things they can run through, jump over, and stuff like that. Kids love that. I love playing red light, green light with the kids. That's a whole nother live of stuff that you can play with the kids that tricks them into training, but they love it. So just making sure that your dog's having games, puzzles, and things that's going to keep them their brain stimulated, because throughout the summer, yes, we're going to have rainy days. We're going to have days when you cannot get your kids and dogs outside. One less thing you want to have to worry about is your dog. So just giving them brain stimulating games like Kongs, food puzzles, licky mats. Those are all toys that helps, stimulate the dog's brain. Another thing you could do to help your kids and dogs make your summer seamless is always remember to supervise playtimes. I talked about earlier getting into the ooches and owls when, you're off trying to get the house in order or get things situated to leave. So you just want to make sure that your dogs and kids are being supervised, especially with the younger ones. I would say if you're having these incidences in your home where you're like, oh my gosh, every time I leave my kids and my dog together, something goes down, I'm hearing an ooch and an owl, I would take your dog with you, put them in the crate, put them in another room while you're getting stuff done until you're able to actively supervise the kids. I promise you, it will save you a lot of stress and headaches just bringing a dog with you for now until, again, we go back to teaching our kids how to be responsible. You want to teach your children about respecting your dog's personal space and areas during their bedtimes, meal times, and just in general. Because again, in the summer, if it's not a nice day, or if you have a kid that, likes to stay inside or whatever, at some point, these kids get bored, right? And what do? They start bothering our dogs. You see it? I'm like, our dogs, that's my baby. They start bothering our dogs, right? Especially when they're sleeping, when the dogs are off minding their business. So you want to be sure that talk to your kids about your dog's personal space. They shouldn't be bothering the dogs like when they're sleeping, when they're eating, when they're off minding their own business. If you see your kid walking in your dog's direction and you know that your dog's relaxing, get over here, get over, what are you doing? So you also want to make sure that when you're supervising your kids and dogs, that they're not bothering your dog as well. And you also just want to explain to your kids, it's more than just saying, don't touch the dog, they're sleeping. Explain to them why. Explain the best way I explain is like, hey, when you're sleeping, would you like someone to come bother you while you're having to sleep? And they use like, no. It's the same thing for dogs. You have to explain to the children that way. Like, you don't want someone to just go reach their hand in your food when you're eating. You don't just take things away from a dog either. And you don't want to get into, that's a whole nother live too, your dog, growling, lunging and things like kids, because that will be a really long summer. So just make sure you're talking to your kids about boundaries. Last things last, heat safety. That's an important one. You're taking the kids outside. You want your pet to stay hydrated during all these activities. So just make sure that you're bringing water bowls with you. You're checking the temperature. Usually, it's general rules for different dogs and different breeds. We can get in that too. But usually anything over 80 is a little too hot for a dog. So you want to take that consideration. Maybe leave them at home. If you're unsure, leave them at home too. Be sure you don't leave your dog unattended in a parked car, even with the windows cracked or open. It can get really hot in there really quickly. You try it yourself. It's no fun just sitting there with the windows cracked this much and all that heat's coming in. So make sure you don't leave your dog in the car unlocked, and never leave them unattended in the car as well. Those are the tips that's going to get you through a seamless summer with managing your kids and your dogs. I'm going to implement these tips. I already have with my two, I call them vampires because they just stay up all night and they sleep during the day, and it's crazy. But my dogs are on schedule, so no frets about that. Just to wrap this up, I want to just go through the key points. So, setting up your dog schedule, that's going to be most important to managing your dogs and kids over the summer, involving your kids in their care so they're not just like playing with them what they want and irritating them. Supervising playtime, that's going to be key. Teaching your kids boundaries with your dog. And finally, the heat safety of the summer, especially if you're in those hottest states, you just want to make sure that you're monitoring your dog's heat. Summertime should be fun for bonding while maintaining, a routine for your family and dog. So if you're planning on going on family vacations, just make sure that you're making arrangements to ensure that your dog's well cared for. I get tons of calls about that. When you onboard with me, I have a list of pet pros that I trust. So just make sure if you're not working with me, if have family and friends, usually talking to them are great, but you don't want to wait to the last minute. I know a lot of times we're in a hustle bustle of planning our vacations and then like, oh shoot, where's our dog gonna stay? So just making sure you're planning things in advance. Also observing any behavioral changes that are happening throughout the summer. When things change, dogs sometimes can change, and making sure there's not any underlying health issues and stuff like that. But all in all, we just want you to have a great summer. So that wraps up today's live. Thank you for joining. Feel free to share this live to your families and friends or other busy dog owners that that may find this useful. These are some really good tips. It is the beginning of summer, and you do want to make it easy for you. So with those tips, I will say goodbye, and I'll see you next week with another great live. Bye.